Hello and welcome to another episode of today we'll be doing chapter 5 of Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. I managed to edit the chapter. This is, in case you missed it in the previous video, this is the second to last chapter I originally wrote when I wrote this fanfic. So it's one more after this one. We're editing that, and after that, anything could happen, I guess. So to catch up on what happened in the previous chapters, we left the forest. Lots of things happened, and now we're finally getting started on the quest, because standard RPG is basically you get a quest, you're the hero, you're the one, you go out there and you go defeat all the evil and save the world, because that is how it works. That's how you do proper RPG, especially JRPG, but I guess, well, almost every game out there is like that, I guess. So far, I mean, I will not say too much just yet. I had some ideas. I still remember those original concepts for this fanfic about how it's going to be different. Because as I talked about in previous videos, I was never really quite satisfied with just how far the scope was being used. Like the entirety of the world, and my all-time favorite of, well, here you've got some NPCs, non-playing characters, for those who don't do RPGs, and they never do anything really. And so having a world in which the real world actually feels involved and every single person actually knows what's going on and responds to it. And so now we're out of the forest, we're out of the training area, and we're now in the big wide world, and everything is happening now, and now it's getting exciting, hopefully. So chapter 5, title of this chapter is Adventure. So I guess we just get started. It's almost 9 pages, so that's a pretty long read. Please bear with me. And let's get started now, I guess. Chapter 5, Adventure. After a few hours of walking across Hyrule Field, I have to admit that it is quite different from walking through Hyrule Forest. First of all, the sun is able to blaze unrelentingly down on me without any cover or shade from trees. I am quickly forced to slow down my pace in the summer heat. Then there is the silence. With only the occasional cricket audible, the silence is almost deafening compared to the constant chorus of birds and other creatures among the trees of the forest. Looking at my rapidly diminishing water supply, I mutter something ugly about the sun and dusty roads before swallowing another mouthful of water. You may want to be more careful with the water you have, you know. At this rate you won't last until Hyrule Town, an upbeat voice says next to my right ear. Are there no wells or rivers where I can refill? I respond to Naffy's remark. There is a river more to the north, but would have to cross some more hostile terrain to get to it. The farms in Hyrule Field have the wells which we can use. Basically keep an eye out for a farm, I would say. We have to find a farm where we can stay tonight anyway, so we may ask for directions while we're there. I thought you knew the way everywhere, Naffy, I ask, innocently. Naffy briefly looks at me, as though I'm a presumptuous child asking an inappropriate question. I may have been almost everywhere in Hyrule, but not everywhere equally recently, she responds, putting a lot of meaning into the last word. I flash her a smile and say, of course, how could I forget? Harumphing, Naffy darts ahead again to the top of the next hill, where she waits for me to catch up with her. You know, it would be nice if you had wings like me, Naffy says, casually, as I struggle up the hill with sweat and dust coating the exposed parts of my skin. Imagine how much time we could save. Groaning, I sit down on a dusty road and rest my weary feet. Looking up, I notice that the light is rapidly diminishing as the day draws to an end. Scanning my surroundings, I suddenly imagine that I can see a welcome shape in the distance. Say, isn't that a farm? I remark to the still gloating Naffy, pointing at a distant area. Squinting due to the setting sun, she follows the direction of my pointing finger. I think you're right. I really hope it is one, because it will soon be dark. Remembering Naffy's previous warnings about Starchilds and ghosts, I swallow a bit and quickly ready myself to start walking again. Shouldn't we be going now? We should be relatively safe as long as we stay on the road, Naffy says, her voice thoughtful. And bows aren't that commonly seen. Worst case, you can defend us with your sword. Since it is magical, it will be able to deal with them easily. Still, you're right, there is no reason to tarry. I nod as I start heading towards the distant farm, followed by Naffy. So what is it that makes the road safe? And why aren't the farms being attacked by these Starchilds? I ask Naffy as we resume walking. After a brief pause, Naffy replies, supposedly the stones that make up the road are imbued with powers that repel evil. I'm pretty sure the Great Deku Tree once told me that it were the priests of the Forest Temple who worked together with the Gorons from Death Mountain to create those special stones. The roads that spanned Hyrule Field, the forest, and beyond would all have been created with those stones, creating a web of power that kept Hyrule safe. Nobody really maintained them over the last centuries, however. Now farmers have built walls with the stones, which they got from the roads to keep their farms safe. I see, I respond to this answer, finding myself deep in thought. Part of me feels saddened at seeing the decay that I saw at the Forest Temple extend to well into the rest of Hyrule. It makes me wonder why people stopped caring. Why Hylians, people like myself, stopped caring. Isn't it the duty of the royal family to keep its citizens safe? Why don't they do something about this evil and decay? I burst out. Initially, Naffy doesn't respond. Flitting about me in the air on her silvery wings, it seems as if she hasn't heard my outburst. Then, sounding oddly sad, she responds. It is the way of the short-lived races, I sometimes think. Newer generations aren't as interested in what previous generations deemed important. When there is a generation or two of peace, they begin to forget. Flying over to me to perch on my shoulder, she continues. Maybe it is the fate of Hylians to be reminded of what is important every few generations by some disaster that befalls them. After this exchange, we both fall silent, contemplating dark thoughts as we continue towards tonight's destination. By the time that we're close enough to the farm to make out details, darkness has already set in, with only a glow on the horizon remaining. Being careful not to step outside the somewhat indistinct bounds of the road, we haven't encountered any threats yet. I hope that our luck holds. Nighttime on Hyrule Field is if possible even more disconcerting than during the day. Aside from the occasional sound of an insect or a lone bird, nary a sound can be heard. It makes the noises that my boots and equipment make that much more obvious. I will be really happy to be in the company of others again, not to mention being able to sleep for a long time. I feel exhausted, and I'm quite sure that my feet are raw and blistered. Nearing the gate of the farm, I can see that its grounds are partially surrounded by a rock formation, making for an imposing natural boundary. The rest of the farm has a fence made from sturdy wooden planks, lashed together to keep out anything dangerous on those plains. At the bottom of the fence, I can see stones interspersed, which look a lot like the ones that make up the road. Visible above this fence, I can see multiple buildings which seem to make up the farm. One of them is probably where the farmer and his family lives, judging by its shape, as well as the light that is visible through the windows. It looks unlike any building which I have ever seen before, having only ever seen the hollowed-out trees and simple wooden buildings Kokiri live in, as well as the few stone buildings like the Forest Temple. A sudden rustling noise and the sensation of something soft brushing against my boot makes me freeze in my steps. Alarmed, I look around me, and then at my boots. To my horror, I see that I have drifted far enough off the road to have reached its left side. With my left boot, I've already stepped onto the grass. I quickly pull back my boot and move back to the center of the road. I glance at Naffy, who has noticed what has just happened. She looks concerned as I pull my sword and ready myself. Nothing happens. No Starchild rise up from the ground, and the nearby cricket keeps chirping on undisturbed. After a few tense moments, I relax from my fighting stance and turn towards Naffy with a shaky smile on my face. I guess we got lucky, I say, trying to appear self-assured, as much for myself as for Naffy. She doesn't appear to be relaxing as I look at her, however. The look on her face changed from disbelief to fear, as it seems to be looking at something behind me. "Look out! Behind you!" she yells while moving backwards, away from my position. I'm dimly aware of a noise behind me. It sounds like the ground is shifting, yet before I can turn around, I feel a numbing cold spreading across my back as something sharp rakes along it. It feels as though liquid cold is spreading through my veins. Gaping in shock, I fall to my knees, while desperately trying to maintain my grip on my sword. An overwhelming desire to just close my eyes and lie down forms in my mind. "Link!" At the sound of Naffy's distressed voice, I suddenly realize how close I've come to just giving up. Feeling rising anger at whatever attacked me, I shake off the cold and numbness and move away from my attacker while getting up on my feet again. I remove the bundle from my back and pick up my shield, then take up a defensive stance as I size up my attacker. What I see is nothing like I've seen before, making even the spiders from before look innocent. In front of me, it's not just one skeletal form, or what I assume to be a Starchild, but at least two, and I can see the ground behind them being disturbed, heralding the arrival of reinforcements. From one set of the sharp claws of the foremost Starchild, I can see dark drops, presumably my blood, still dripping to the ground. I briefly wince at the cold pain that is still numbing my back, before I manage to put the sensation to the back of my mind again. "Naffy!" I yell. Within a heartbeat, I hear her fluttering wings next to me. "I think we should retreat. There are too many of them for you to fight," she states calmly, at which I nod grimly. "The farm?" I ask, moving backwards out of the range of the Starchild's claws. "The farm." I quickly nod again understanding, then glance behind me at the farm entrance. It is barred with a solid fence. "How will we get in?" I ask, a note of despair creeping into my voice as I deflect a sweeping attack from the Starchild with my shield, causing a wave of agony in my injured back. "Leave that to me. Just keep them off as long as you can, while staying near the entrance." "Please hurry," I state, as I return my attention to the fight. Behind me, I hear Naffy move quickly in the direction of the farm. The Starchild which is attacking me is a fair sight to behold. It is nearly as tall as a grown Hylian, meaning that it towers over me, and to all appearances is a whole skeleton. Aside from the faint red glow in its eye sockets, its hands have the appearance of claws as one would find on a predator, which it uses in broad sweeping attacks, displaying a lack of tactics, and probably intelligence as well. Noting this fact, I dart to the side, observing how cumbersome it moves. With a single swipe of my sword, I take off its left arm. Then in a desperate stroke, I slide straight through its neck, severing the head from the spinal column. As it crumbles to the ground, I see my chance and quickly locate my pack. Dashing towards it, I pick it up and run towards the farm gate. I don't see any sign of Naffy or any other help yet, as I get closer. And the gate is definitely not suitable for climbing over, being basically a smooth wooden surface with nothing to hold onto. I throw down my pack in front of the gate and face my enemies. After cutting down the first Starchild, the remaining one got joined by two more from the looks of it, and they're advancing slowly, with an awkward, shuffling pace. As though they don't really remember how to walk anymore, if they ever truly were alive. In a way, I'm glad that these Starchilds aren't that fast or nimble. Now I will have at least a good chance of surviving this. Just then, a sudden noise above me startled me from my focus on the enemies which are lumbering towards my position. As I glance up, I'm just in time to see a black shape plummet towards me from the dark sky. Cursing the numbing cold which is making my movements more sluggish than normal, I manage to raise my shield in time to deflect the object. It makes a loud, thudding noise as it impacts the shield, jarring my arm and sending fresh waves of agony through my body. Whatever hit my shield slides down onto the ground, next to me, where I can get a good look at it. To my surprise, it's a bird, about the size of a large crow, but with a sharp, red beak and feathers as black as the night. I count myself lucky that the moon is visible this night, or I might never have seen this new threat coming. The limp form of the bird stirs as it is returning to consciousness. Not wanting to risk another confrontation with this airborne threat, I steel myself and behead it. Killing a defenseless creature is still very different from slaying one which is attacking me, yet this is not time to be squeamish. To my surprise, the bird's remains take on a bluish hue before blue flames begin to consume it. It is as though the remains are being consumed from the inside out. Within the span of 2 heartbeats, the bird is gone. As I scan the sky for more black shapes, I am shocked to see what appears to be a whole flock of them assembling above me. They appear to be circling above my position, as though waiting for an order to attack. Glancing back at the Starchild, I reckon the first one will be on me in mere moments. Resigning myself to a short and brutal battle, I lurch forward, reaching the first Starchild and beheading it before it can do me any harm. Darting between the remaining Starchilds, I make short work of them as well. Now that I think about it, these Starchilds are a lot less frightening than an unseen enemy lurking above my head, ready to turn me into a perforated mess not readily identifiable as a Hylian child. I find myself smirking at the last thought, as I wonder how many Hylian children would find themselves in a situation like this. With the last Starchild disposed of, I turn back towards the gate, while keeping an eye on the gathering flock above my head. To my horror, I see the ground in front of the gate shift and churn, while bone-white claws tear through the soil, followed by the rest of the forms of 3 new Starchilds. Inwardly, I groan at this new development. Just as I prepare to turn these new enemies back into loose piles of bones, I hear a noise above me, which fills me with dread. One glance at the flock tells me all I need to know. They are preparing to attack, and as far as I can tell, there are hundreds of them, a seething mass of death descending to my position. As the first shapes enter into a dive towards the ground, I try to run towards the gate, and the relative safety which it offers, but all strength seems to have left my body. Stumbling, I manage to stay upright. Only through sheer strength of will do I manage to make my way to the gate, where the Starchild are already making their way towards me. Maybe I can use them as a kind of shield? A bright light suddenly appears in front of me. The gate is opening, slowly, and the light is hovering behind it. As the lantern's light touches the Starchild, they shudder as if in pain, before collapsing into piles of bones. From behind the gate I hear voices encouraging me to hurry towards it, away from danger. There is nothing I would like more, but my body seems to be reaching its limits. The pain in my back makes every step and every moment agony, and I'm having trouble focusing. As I look again at the gate, it's just a blurry shape to me. As I force myself to take one more step, and then one more, I notice that I'm rapidly losing consciousness. Clenching behind me, there is just a wall of darkness, mixed with the red of vicious beaks. This gives me the strength to move a bit faster. Just before I think I can discern the faces of those standing at the gate, I stumble one last time and find I lack the strength to get up again. Before I pass out, it feels as though I'm sliding. Then there's a single thudding noise, followed by many harder thuds. Unable to muster the strength to care, I embrace sweet oblivion. Breathing. I'm aware of the sound of breathing. Concentrating, I notice its rhythm. In, out, In, out. It's so peaceful. Gradually, awareness dawns of my body. The breathing is my own. The lungs being filled with and draining of air mine. I'm lying on something soft and fluffy and warm, with more of the same covering me. Everything is quiet around me. Everything feels right and at ease. Somewhere I hear the chirping of songbirds, apparently somewhere outside. Startled by a sudden rush of memories flooding back, I open my eyes and take in my surroundings. There are no birds above me, there are no skeletons. There is nothing around me which might want to kill me. Just an old wooden ceiling supported by thick wooden beams and a cozy room. I'm lying in a comfortable bed with soft, down-filled pillows and bed coverings. Before I get a chance to wonder where I am and how I got here, something suddenly thumps down on my chest and a high-pitched voice proclaims, "Welcome back to the world of the living." At this curious statement, I look down at my chest and see Naffy grinning impishly at me. As I try to answer a grin, I feel sharp pains stabbing through my body. I softly groan. "What took you so long?" I managed to utter through a parched throat and lips that feel cracked. "I was about to be turned into freshly ground meat out there." "Sorry, Link," Naffy says. "It took a while to rouse the farmer. It appears he's quite a sleepy type." Looking around, I see a glass of water on a table next to the bed. Working myself up into a sitting position with a certain amount of agony involved, I gratefully fetch the glass and slowly drink its contents. I feel sure that I've never tasted water quite this tasty. Feeling refreshed, I return the glass to the table and lean back into the soft pillows. So what happened out there? I remember the gate opening and the lantern shining through. Then it's just that black mass of birds chasing me. You were half running, half stumbling towards the gate when we saw you. Those birds were pursuing you, but at least the Starchild vanished when we exposed it to the lantern's light. For a moment I thought you wouldn't be able to make it, but that last bird really saved you." She smiles faintly, while reliving those moments. "We, being the farmer and his assistants obviously, pulled you past the gate and closed it as soon as we could. Then those birds suddenly found the way blocked. It was quite a record." At this point, Naffy actually grins. Remembering the many thudding noises, I cannot help but join her. It truly must have been a sight to see dozens, if not more, birds smack beak first into the solid wood of the gate. Then I remember something else. "Naffy, when I slew one of those birds, it vanished into a burst of blue flame. You know anything about this, or what those birds are?" Naffy ponders on this question for a moment, then responds, "From what I could tell last night, they are a gwei. Vicious birds who hunt on Hyrule Field and surrounding areas. I haven't heard of them attacking people though, and they generally don't vanish into thin air after dying either. I wonder whether..." As her voice trails off, I'm left wondering what she could be implying. "You think they were summoned? Created by a magic user?" I ask. Naffy nods. "Most likely yes, though to what purpose, I do not know." "Maybe just an experiment gone wrong," I suggest. "Maybe," Naffy says tentatively. For a few moments, neither of us speaks, occupied with her own thoughts while nothing but the sounds of regular birds can be heard outside. Then their voices are joined by another, a singing voice. It might be just by imagination, but the birds seem to quiet almost straight away. Also equally mesmerized by the singing as I am. It sounds like a young girl's voice, light and delicate. Yet even with some distance and a wall between us, I imagine I can hear the precise melody and some of the lyrics. It makes me think of wide open fields, of running through them with limitless energy, of sitting quietly at the bank of a river. Gradually, I can feel the stress and worries about yesterday's events slip away from me. Combined with the cozy atmosphere of the room, I find myself experiencing such an intense feeling of belonging that it almost cancels out the sense of longing which I felt when I left Kokiri Forest behind me, which should now be exactly 1 day ago. Then, as fleeting as a dandelion seed drifting past, the singing reaches the apparent end of the song and slowly fades away. Its absence leaves behind a kind of emptiness, like waking up from a very pleasant dream. "Who was that?" I asked Naffy, who seems to have been listening as intently as I have, judging by the look on her face. "Melon, the farmer's daughter. Her mother died a few years ago. She has been raised by a father, Talon, ever since. I'm pretty sure it was her mother who taught her to sing like that, considering her father," she remarks. "I see. She sure does have a beautiful singing voice." I experimentally attempt to stretch my arms and shoulders. While it still hurts, it's nothing like the pain which I felt during the fight. I look at Naffy again. "What damage did that Starchild who slashed me do anyway? What was that numbing cold which I felt?" "They're undead creatures, so they can imbue their victims with some of what one might call an undead energy. This is the opposite of the energy of the living. Basically both cancel each other out. You only got a scratch, fortunately, so you got over it on your own after a few hours of thrashing around in your sleep. Melon is apparently pretty skillful with healing potions as well, so there won't be any ugly scars to carry around the rest of your life." "It was so different from fighting the spiders back in the forest," I observe, reflecting. "I've never seen anything like those undead creatures, or been assaulted by flocks of magically conjured birds. Is this quest going to get even more dangerous?" "Oh yes, I've heard stories of and seen things much worse than mere Starchilds. There's no telling what you may encounter from now on." Naffy responds cheerfully to my rhetorical question. Once more, I ask myself what made me accept this quest, and more importantly, how in the world I'm going to survive long enough to see it to a successful end. Obviously, I'm still very inexperienced at this fighting thing, but I'm sure I'll get a chance to get the experience I need to get to a point where Gwei and Starchild are no longer a significant threat to me. Not for the first time, I briefly entertained the thought of abandoning such a foolhardy quest. Naffy must have noticed my internal struggle, for suddenly she's sitting on my shoulder, one hand resting on my neck, the closest she can probably get to comforting me, considering her size. I turn my head towards her. "I know what you're thinking," she says, her tone serious. "I also know that the Great Deka Tree could see things no other living being could, even in the future. If he said that you will be the element in this upcoming struggle which will shift the balance in the favor of those without evil intentions, then it is the truth. You will finish this quest. You will save Hyrule, even if right now you can't see how you're going to make it through the next few days. Trust me." With this said, Naffy flashes me a comforting grin. I realize that she may have gone through things like this before, guiding others through similar struggles, all for the benefit of Hyrule or something else equally important. I return a grin and feel myself relax. Maybe things will turn out fine after all. "One last question," I ask. "Anyone bother to fetch my pack while they were busy saving me?" Naffy points to a corner of the room. "Myron got it for you," she says. "I will have to personally thank her then," I grin, as I prepare to get out of bed. In the end, it wasn't as painful as I expected it to be, to make my way down from the upstairs bedroom that I had found myself in, and to find my way outside. While I can feel overworked and injured muscles still painfully tugging at times, and I'm generally feeling as bruised as a piece of root which has just fallen out of a tall tree, I feel that I can deal with it. Standing outside, I can see that the building which the farmer and his family live in is placed near the gate, opposite from the barn. Covering my eyes against the bright sunlight, I look around. The gate seems intact enough. For some reason I'd expected there to be marks on it indicating the battle from yesterday. Looking at the space opposite the gate, beyond the barn, I can see what must be the field where the cattle grazes. I decide to look there first. As I walk past the barn, I feel somewhat overwhelmed by the large amount of enclosed space. Yesterday, from outside the farm, it seemed much smaller. Chalk up another one for first impressions, I guess. The field has cows grazing in a spread out group in an area to my right. Near the center, there is a small wooden structure, with a roof and one wall. Walking towards it, it appears to be a kind of stable for horses, with a few horses currently near it. Other horses are wandering freely around elsewhere on the field. Near the stable structure, I can make out a figure of a young girl. I guess she must be Melon. Melon has got chestnut brown hair with a tinge of auburn. Together with the large eyes and smooth, somewhat tense skin, she really is kind of pretty, I feel. Almost as pretty as Saria, I suddenly think. A painful surge of longing momentarily threatens to disrupt my composure. Pulling myself back together, I approach Melon and wait for her to notice me. She's talking to one of the horses while stroking it. After a moment, she finally notices me and turns towards me. I subconsciously register that she has grey eyes and that her long hair fits her really well. Feeling suddenly kind of shy, I try to say something, but find that I cannot think of anything which is appropriate and doesn't make me sound awkward. Fortunately, she is the first to say something. "Hi Link! Naffy already told me everything about you and your quest. Pleased to meet you," she says in one breath. "Oh, how rude of me. I didn't even introduce myself yet." She holds out her hand for me to shake. "My name is Melon. My father owns this farm. I hope you're feeling better now. You looked pretty bad yesterday after we saved you from those horrible monsters." I still cannot get over the amount of energy this single girl is radiating. It's like standing next to the sun itself. Feeling less awkward, I extend my hand as well and shake hers. "Hello, Melon," I say. "I guess there isn't much which I can say at this point which you don't know yet. I'm sure Naffy will have been very thorough." At this I briefly glance with a pretend angry look at Naffy, who is hovering near us. Melon laughs with a clear, sunlight-filled laugh at this. "Naffy said you're about my age and also in Hylian, but that you were raised in the Kokiri forest. Is that true? I've never been there, but I've heard it's really pretty there in the forest. I wish I could visit it someday, but my father never has time and nobody ever seems to go there either. I'm always busy at the farm taking care of the horses instead. Not that I mind it, of course," Melon gushes. To my relief, Naffy decides to interfere at this point and manages to somehow answer Melon's question sufficiently. For now. It's not that I don't like talking, but this girl seems to spend too much time talking to horses which are unlikely to expect her to wait for them to answer back. I briefly remember my many conversations with Saria back in the forest, along with a pang of longing. As Melon seems to have run out of questions to ask and things to comment upon, I decide to ask something. "That song we heard earlier, was that you singing?" I ask. She looks up from the fowl with his stroking. "Yes, that was me. It's a song I sing often. My mom taught it to me. It's called Epona song, just like this little one here," she replies. Suddenly, her eyes take on a twinkle. "I saw that you have an ocarina in your pack. I was so relieved it was still intact after everything. Can you play it? I would like to have someone to make music with, if you don't mind," she asked. While it is Saria's ocarina, Saria did teach me how to play it. To be honest, I feel it would be nice to spend some time together with others, making music, just like during those times. It might ease the pain of longing a bit, and make me feel less alone in this big world which I have only just entered. I smile warmly at Melon. "Yes, I would very much like that," I say. And that was chapter 5. It's, I guess the interesting thing about this chapter, it's kind of the traditional, the outset kind of part of the story, where all of the local quests, the introduction, the starting area, this is how you actually play the game kind of tutorial part has been finished and wrapped up, and then you are ready to enter the big world. You're not ready, but you're going anyway, and yeah. This is also the part where normally the game kind of throws you in this open world scenario, like you can go pretty much anywhere, but that's not. I mean, it's kind of nice, but there must still be a reason, like if you're telling a story like this. So I mean, obviously I could just randomly send Link around at this point through the entirety of Hyrule and look at everything and poke at everything and get completely lost, but then you would basically end up in the same problem as in the game, where you get Naffy yelling at you, we have to go to there, our destination. So that's something which I'm not going to do. I'm not going to the whole let's do everything but the main quest. As Link already indicates in this story, he's kind of ready to just get it over with. You know, he's not there because it's fun. He's not there because he wants to be there. He would have been perfectly happy to live out his days back in the forests. I mean, why ever would he want to live there? I mean, Kokiri Forest, it's where he was born, as far as he used to think. It's where he grew up. It's where he knows everyone. It's his world. He has this whole life with the forest temple and together with Saria and involving others maybe, and so much more there. And that is really his life. And suddenly you get told, well, actually, you weren't born here, and now you're off to do this amazing thing to save the world because only you can do it. Of course, I'm not really that much a fan of this whole, well, the one true savior of the entirety of the world. So that's kind of I mean, of course, I don't want to get too much far into spoilers at this point, because for people who know the games, they know everything about the whole innate powers that some people in this universe actually have been granted. But that's a real spoiler. And even then, like, even if you had superpowers, if it's you versus an army, what are you going to do? Right now it's just Link being like the one true savior, and he is having trouble just dealing with a couple of Grey and Starchild. So, and suddenly there is this bigger evil force out there, and that he will just stand up to and defeat. That seems kind of unlikely, really. So, So there's one more chapter after this one, which I have already written from way back then, and so I'll be updating that one. That will end obviously with a really, really big cliffhanger, because that's fun. That's how you do good story writing. So be pre-spoiled about the big cliffhanger in the next chapter. After that, it's going to be a lot of just writing of new chapters, which will be a lot of work, which will take a lot of time. Which I need to find time for, which I do not have time for yet. Let us see how I can organize that and get it going. I would really love to hear about how much you would like to see me do that. Get some feedback on that, because I would really like to do it. But in real life, there's a thing called making money with things, sadly. So you only have so many hours in a day that you can spend on hobbies and the like. So at any rate, I hope you enjoyed this chapter. Hope to see you back for the, for now, final chapter, and for any other stories that I will be telling and writing and telling, and for anything else that may be coming up the coming time. So hope you enjoyed it. If you enjoyed it, leave a like, comment, subscribe, become a patron, and just I appreciate everything, and it really helps me a lot. So thank you, and have a great day.